Ready, set, go!
Registration is now open for the Middle States Commission on Higher Education 2023 Annual Conference. It's in Philadelphia, December 4th through 6th, 2023, Setting the Standard, Transformation Through Accreditation. You don't want to miss it. Register now at msche.org.
Surprise!
We're taking the EdUp Experience podcast to Insights EDU. Join us for an incredible higher education marketing and enrollment management conference, February 20th to 22nd in Phoenix, Arizona. Register now at insightsedu.com and use promo code EdUp to save $50 off your registration.
Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to Ed Up on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is your special guest host, Elliot Markowitz. I'm the founder and former head of content of Fierce Education, and I'm founder and chief content officer at eMedia Strategies. I will be filling in for Joe Salucio today, who is probably out scuba diving off the coast of the Cayman Islands, or hiking up Mount Kilimanjaro, or maybe he's just lying on a beach writing his next great book for higher education. Who knows where Joe is, but I'm sure he's listening. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Ryan Ross. He's the founder and CEO of Olivia Technologies. Olivia is an edge platform delivering a digital learning experience anytime, anywhere, regardless of broadband connectivity, with bridging the students with higher education, which is critical in today's higher ed environment. So welcome to the EdUp podcast, Ryan.
A pleasure, and I'm really excited to share with you and the audience what we're up to at Olivia.
Excellent. We're excited to hear about it. First off, real quick, from a 30,000-foot level, explain to the audience a little better than I just did what Olivia really does, and specifically your role, and especially being the founder.
Yeah, sure. So, who we are is really an engagement platform. We focus in on delivering quality content and services to all students that struggle with broadband. So essentially, we deliver services with or without internet connectivity. And so we came up with this idea as we sat there and saw COVID unfold, and seeing millions of students struggle with connectivity or had no connectivity whatsoever. And when we got into some discussions around, what exactly is the problem and how would we go solve this, we realized that everybody was talking about broadband, and it's not about broadband. What it is about is delivering digital assets and resources to students, whether they've got broadband or not. And so Exactly, right? And so if you take out the broadband out of the equation, then it becomes an easier problem to solve. And so that's what we focused in on. And so really what we ended up doing is focusing on, it's all about digital engagement that can be delivered anywhere, anytime.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
No, I was just going to say, and it's quite interesting because you mentioned COVID, which nobody wants to talk about anymore. We think we're out of the woods. But when you look at the higher education market, and you can't say a lot of positive things have come out of COVID, but one thing you really can say is it really exposed the accessibility issue, right?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, look, there's a great report that came out in and around the time of COVID, which Common Sense Media and Boston Consulting put together. They looked at state by state, and specifically in the K-12 and higher ed education, and how those states struggled with infrastructure and the ability for these students to connect to content in those states. And it really was an eye-opener for me. I mean, I didn't realize how bad it was. And then when we dug into this further, I mean, right here in Silicon Valley, literally from the Stanford campus, 40 miles away over on the coastline where Half Moon Bay is in Pascadero, there's 4,000 students that struggle with broadband. I mean, that's 40 miles away from the heart of Silicon Valley. So this problem exists almost everywhere you look. And so as you start digging into it, let's talk about Texas, for example. 1.8 million students don't have connectivity in Texas. California is right behind them, 1.5 million. You get into New York, there's 800,000. So it really blows your mind when you think about, the issues of infrastructure. And by the way, this problem is not going to be solved anytime soon, or in some cases, maybe forever. So this is a struggle that is ongoing and is only growing, because when you talk about publishing, right, the publishers are moving into a digital world. You'll be hard pressed to find, a textbook, physical textbook, for lots of reasons, and we can talk about that later. But I think this is where the landscape is that this is a large struggle, and that digital divide is only growing, not getting smaller, for lots of different reasons.
So if you can clarify just a little bit for our audience, because when you think of large terms like connectivity and bandwidth, there's a lot of things involved in there. There's Wi-Fi, right? There's 5G or 4G. Right. There are devices, right? There's your IP addresses. There's bandwidth. What specifically does Olivia Technologies focus on in that pyramid?
Well, it's funny, Joe, nobody cares about all those things. All they care about is whether they can access the resources, right? So, let's not get too deep in the technology front, but how we do it. And so our focus is, and first and foremost, we looked at the school infrastructure, right? And one of the things I found out very quickly is that the industry is very fragmented, right? Especially when you get into the K-12 market. And so we realized very quickly that there are a couple of things we wanted to do. We are not an LMS, and we don't create content, right? But what we wanted to do is incorporate the decisions the schools have already made around their LMS, and also try to incorporate content that the schools already either have a relationship with the publishers and the content providers, and incorporate that into a student experience. And so what we really do is we use the school's existing digital assets, integrate into that, and then deliver that to what we call the Olivia device. And so this is where the Olivia device stands out. And so, this device is called an edge device, and it's really designed to work on the edge of the network. It works online or offline. It is a Wi-Fi access point. So when you look at it, it looks just like an access point. What the difference is, it's got an embedded server. So all the software, all the storage, everything resides on that device. And so when you log on to that device with your PC or laptop or tablet or whatever that might be, what you're really doing is accessing the content on the device, not anything in the internet, right? And so based on that, we really look at how we made this as simple as possible. It's a browser-based, so you don't have to worry about downloading any software on your laptop or any of those things. It's a walled garden. So, this is really interesting. We get a lot of reaction from parents, the fact that this is a walled garden. They log on to it. The only thing they're getting access to is the content that the teachers and the schools have curated for them. And so it really cuts out the noise and focuses them on the opportunity to engage with content on those in that environment. And so a couple other elements to this is that, we took the world of the teachers, right? They, if you talk to, especially in high school or, schools K-12 in general, teachers are overwhelmed. And so if you were to show up and say, hey, you got to learn one more thing to do, they're going to look at you like, get out of the room now. All right. So what we're focused on is just simplifying and reducing the time it takes for those teachers to curate and engage and essentially deliver that content. And so when a teacher logs on to the Olivia portal, if they're using Canvas or Blackboard or Google Classroom, it's the same. We're literally using their front end. We grab the teacher's curriculum, and then we also give the access to teachers to a library of content that they have access to that's been curated around their subject matters and their curriculum. So we save time of them having to go search for content. It's all there for them. They add that to the curriculum, they publish that. And on the other side, we have the Olivia device that then synchronizes all that data. And the device is issued to each student. So the student takes that, throws it in their backpack, takes it home, plugs it in like a hotspot, and then logs onto it. And then what the students are seeing is something that looks just like their LMS system, except they've got an extensive library of content that they can access as well. So they can upload their homework, and again, they feels like you're online. And so for those students that struggle with no connectivity or no broadband at all in their home or in their environment, they can bring the device back to the school, into the classroom, and plug it into a hub that synchronizes and uploads their homework and downloads any new curriculum that's been curated during the period that device has been offline.
Yeah, the ease of use is amazing. Even in higher ed, once we started really moving towards blended learning, and you being in the technology industry, we know technology doesn't go backwards; it only moves forward.
Yeah,
Obviously, right?
absolutely.
And a lot of instructors, I'd say most instructors, were saying, "Listen, I'm a subject matter expert. I've been teaching this English course or this law course, this philosophy course for so many years. Now I have to be a technologist. Now I got to be a social media expert. Now I got to engage on Instagram. I can't do all these things. It was too much for me to learn."
Yeah, exactly.
So it sounds like your device makes that a lot simpler. But what's interesting is that, at the college or higher education level, every college university is different and their needs are different. Every client is different. It's not one size fits all. So most technology providers really have to do so much customization when they're working with each individual institution. But it sounds like your solution really does take away a lot of that personalization and could be somewhat of a blanket use, right?
Well, this is really interesting because when we started focusing in on the K to 12 market, right? But the use cases expanded rapidly as we got into high school. And here's the challenges. Just because you graduate high school doesn't mean automatically you get broadband when you go to community college,
No.
right? And so the data I've seen says that roughly 3 million students across the US that are in community colleges and colleges struggle, and it's probably higher than that. But the challenge is there. And so what do these students do? Well, they then have to either go to campus, spend time on campus, in accessing the broadband at campus. What we've done is looking at how we free up that student to go anywhere they want, right? And have that digital resource at the tip of their fingers, and it just gives them that flexibility, right? But on the flip side, the other thing that we found was as we got into high school, students that are college bound, that want to go to community colleges, that there were a couple of things that they were struggling with. One, they were struggling with access to information about the community colleges and what they offer, right? The programming. And so we see an opportunity to create relationships with those community colleges to get those students in high school starting to engage with the possibilities of the degrees that they can get at the local community colleges and colleges. And so it's really an opportunity for these colleges and community colleges to start building a brand and getting these students engaged in why they should be moving into higher ed. And the other thing we found is the struggle with students who are college bound and are, this world very well. In order to get into a college nowadays, it's very competitive. And if you haven't taken, advanced courses, AP courses, and other programs, then you're at a huge disadvantage with other kids that have that access. And so here's the interesting part, that tells you already those students that don't have access to the internet are at a huge disadvantage. And so our focus is how do we bring in that programming, AP courses, advanced courses, other information that will help those students compete with other students that are online. And so this is where that relationship between the community college and the high school becomes really interesting and important.
Yeah. So where do you see most of your traction, or where do you see most of the opportunity, or better yet, need? Is it really at the university level, or is it more in the community college level where maybe they're in an impoverished area or an unrepresented area? Where do you see, is it a need across the board in higher education, or there is really an entry point?
Well, this is a great question, because when we started looking at this, we thought, well, maybe community colleges are really, the home run. And
that
this
would be
is where
my
the real need.
Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But we have had discussions with higher ed, very large universities. And so one of the challenges that was presented to us in what they're struggling with is when you have incoming freshmen that are coming from very diverse environments. So again, these students could be coming from rural areas and they're already at a disadvantage. They may not even know really how an LMS works. And so what they were looking at is how we could provide an Olivia device, really helping onboard these freshmen prior to even getting to school. So once they accepted the offer, they would get an Olivia device. And on that is, if they're looking at taking chemistry and biology, get them already engaged with what does it mean to take an advanced, a chemistry 101, and what does it mean to do these things. And so at that point, get them, prepared for what it means to go get into these classes. Because one of the struggles they have is you may have this incoming freshman class and you have no idea really in some cases where that student is in the spectrum of whether they're, they understand the language, understand the courses or not. And this way, the university wanted to assess those students prior to getting in so they could position them with the right set of content, the right set of teaching that will make them successful, because nobody wants to fail. They want to graduate all these students. And so they felt this was a great way to help get that positioning. And in fact, there's some data that was done by Maryland Baltimore University that looked at the data of an incoming freshman, and they could predict fairly accurately whether that student was going to end up with an A, B, C, D, or withdrawal within the first 30 days of that student engaging digitally. And so this is where I think, there's an opportunity to help, again, starting in the high school arena, getting those students prepared and really building both, the mindset as well as looking at how these schools build their brand and value to these students as they're preparing to make those decisions and where they're going.
Should you register for the Middle States Commission on Higher Education annual conference this December 4th through 6th in Philadelphia?
100%.
I agree, because the title of the conference is called Setting the Standard, Transformation Through Accreditation. There is no time like the present to explore opportunities in higher education and the future for our students and our business model. Get out and network with your peers this December 4th through 6th at the Middle States Commission on Higher Education annual conference.
Attention.
Are you ready to elevate your institution's marketing and enrollment strategies? Join the EdUp Experience podcast at the Insights EDU conference, February 20th to 22nd in Phoenix, Arizona. Don't miss out on this opportunity to hear from engaging speakers from industry-leading companies like Google, LinkedIn, Adobe, and higher ed leaders. Learn the latest marketing and enrollment strategies to grow your programs. Register now at insightsedu.com and use promo code EdUp to save $50 off your registration.
Attention.
Yeah, and it's even, and I'm sure you would agree, and if you don't, please disagree. It's been very challenging for the incoming freshmen or any incoming students into higher education over the last couple of years, because they haven't been as prepared as previous students. Just because of now we're full believers in blending learning and online learning and a hybrid environment, but the way it was rolled out in many of the high schools, these students were not, academically prepared. They weren't socially prepared, and as a result, they drop out quicker, or they, like you said, they could tell if they're going to succeed or not succeed. Seems like this type of ease to accessibility earlier on would increase their odds and their comfort in doing well.
Yeah, and so we like to take it up even a level, a higher level in terms of the way you could look at Olivia. What we're thinking is that Olivia really is an education network. It's a private network that's really, allowing students to engage with content that's personalized for them and can be delivered anywhere. So you've got, the access, meeting digital equity and meeting lots of diverse needs. And so it's quite interesting because this technology crosses over certainly into community colleges and colleges. But we were also offered up, and again, we weren't even pursuing this, but correctional institutions where the inmates want to get a degree while they're incarcerated. And the problem there is that they don't have access or can't get access to the internet. So how do you teach online courses? Yeah. Right. And
for
so
good
our
reason.
yeah, for a good reason, absolutely. But here's another example, a use case where they said, well, could you utilize your platform inside these facilities? And absolutely, they can be totally walled off
Give them
from the
the
internet.
access without the whole internet, right?
Exactly, and they can interact with these programs, do their
That's
homework,
great.
see videos, do all those things. And then another use case was, is coming along, and I think this is related pretty much with the community college, and that's workforce development, right? And as you're seeing more and more community colleges on board workforce development programming,
Absolutely.
right? This is a great opportunity to get that workforce development programming in place again in high school, to get those students who know they're not college bound, they're not interested in it, they're looking for a different course and path in their life. And so this allows the community colleges to build that relationship and show what opportunities they have in getting certified in certain areas. And in fact, they may even start being able to certify themselves while they're in high school. Again, this is all about the ability to bring a lot of these various different groups together in one network and creating one experience that the students have access to. And I'll share with you, one of the schools that we've deployed. It's a high school on the Big Island in Hawaii. It's a very rural area. There is very little internet connectivity at all. Even the school struggles with internet in this environment. And so when we got to the high school teachers, they pretty much said there's very, very few students in this school goes on to community college or even college. They're all sort of workforce, they look to get a job when they graduate. And so what they were really focused in on is, can you start helping us with career focused programming, right? In things that get these students ready. So for example, financial literacy programming, right? And the career focus in terms of what my options might be at the local community college, and how to cook food, and just basic things that they felt these students really needed to be prepared for as they're moving out. But again, what this does is it opens up that door for us to work both with the community colleges and other groups to help bring in that programming that is so vital for these students in high school as we're trying to make this decision.
That certainly would be. I can tell you from my own experience. I have 3 kids. My oldest ended up getting 2 masters. My youngest my middle is in the process of completing an architecture degree. My youngest son didn't really know what he wanted, and he didn't know if he wanted to go to college. Right. He ended up enrolling in a welding school, which will be fantastic for him. But there was a gap between his decision making and when he wanted to do it. That something like this type of access to the information and the content would have helped his decision making easier, obviously. So
yeah,
one of the things I just wanted to bring up to you,
sure,
because I don't want to run out of time with this. Higher education has been, unfairly, I will say, targeted by hackers and spammers over the last couple of years, as universities and colleges have rolled out all different types of technologies looking for the weak spot. How do you ensure against this? How do you promote or secure the data and promote safety here?
Well, it's a great question, and absolutely everybody needs to think about how you secure any sort of digital assets or your network. What's interesting about Olivia is that it works offline. So your exposure to hackers is almost zero. The only one that might be able to hack into it is the student, and you would know that fairly quickly. This device only connects and communicates with the network for less than a minute when it's synchronizing data. And so all our security is in the cloud, and utilizing all the tools that we can in the cloud that ensure that that data is clean. There's no other bugs or other malicious software within that environment. But as we see it, because it is a closed network, and pretty much all the entities that are getting onto it, and et cetera, that this becomes an environment that is extremely secure for schools to manage and to be able to utilize in that type of way.
And who at the university specifically would you want to hear this message? Is it the CIOs? Is it the head of the departments? Is it maybe in the administration side at the provost or so? Who do you think needs to hear this message to make decisions on these types of technologies?
Yeah, I think on the administration side, because the use cases are quite large, and the administration understands where all the issues are coming from. And so if you know, in the fact that you've got this background in publishing, right? So right now, when you look at the publishing world, it's been thrown upside down because of state policies. And you know, if I'm trying to print a book, I would be pulling my hair out right now because you don't know what to put in it because
Mhm.
next week something could be, you know, wrong in the book and you just, you know, your book's being pulled off the shelf. So what's happening in that world is literally is being pushed into the digital world, whether they like it or not, right? And that's true for what's happening in colleges and in community colleges. I mean, that's been happening for a long time, but even more so. And so when you're, you know, looking at this from an administrative perspective, this is a way for you to have more control over what's on the network and focusing in on areas where the school is struggling to engage with those students and to figure out how to get better in engaging content on the network, right? And so make it a safe place for these students and one that the administration feels that is safe for their own staff to be able to work in and
Sure.
play with and to be able to, you know, this is not our network, it's your network. So from that, you get to create and add and delete or whatever you want as you're moving forward. And as you well know, Elliot, the you know, AI is coming down this path, whether you like it or not. And so this is another area where we believe we can have an impact in creating a safe environment for students to experiment with things like that. Certainly for teachers and being able to utilize that and knowing what type of content that may be positioned properly for the students in the space as well.
Well,
But the point,
you kind of read
you
my
go for
mind
it.
with that one because what I
Yep.
wanted to ask you also was because of some of the heavy applications needed with virtual reality and AI, you know, bandwidth is just it's as you said earlier in this conversation, it's never going to be solved. There's always going to be the need for more bandwidth. How does
Right.
your technology handle such a heavy load like that as it keeps increasing?
Yeah. Well, you know, first of all, I like to say don't be hostage because of broadband, right? This is software, and this is a platform that we adapt to the needs of our end
Okay.
users. And so I have no way to predict what the future looks like, but I know it's changing rapidly, and so do they, right? And so, you know, our ability to incorporate what we can in terms of what our network can support is where we want to go. But to your point, you know, when you talk about AR, VR, right? This is a great example. Interesting technology, but if you try to implement it in your campus, guess what? It eats up tremendous
Yes, it
amount of
does.
bandwidth.
It's a band. I
You know
like to
what?
call it
And
a bandwidth
so,
suck.
yeah, and so the problem there is you're driving your IT team crazy. How do you keep up with the demand for broadband? So again, here's an application that could be localized on our device that
Hmm.
then reduces the overhead on
That's right.
the local network, and therefore, you know, your IT person can sleep a little better at night
That's a great
related
point.
to whether you've got enough broadband or not. But that's just an example of how
Yeah.
we can change the dynamics of the way this might work.
No, no, that's very tangible because it's a very real problem, obviously. Final
Right.
question for you. We love to end the broadcast with these two-part questions. We should call them. First, is there anything else you want to talk about or get across that I didn't ask you? And secondly, where do you see the future of higher education going and where you fit in?
Yeah. So, you know, um, what I'd like to say, Ella, is that, you know, we're excited to work with this industry. A lot of the team actually comes from the outside of the industry. So we're more technologists, we're more focused in on product development, et cetera. And so we've got some fresh eyes. And when we look at the problems here, it's interesting because we have very interesting ways to solve those problems and to help support the needs of those community colleges and colleges. So I think at that level, you know, really excited to get engaged with the various different groups and to be able to see how we can help. And so that's one thing I want to put out there. The other is, related to where this industry is and where it's going. It's going in a pace that I think it's hard for a lot of these schools to keep up with. Yep. It's hard for the teachers to keep up with. And so the question is, can you put more control around this in the way you engage students with digital resources? And again, I think this is another area where we can help play a role that provides an environment that is predictable, one that is designed for the teachers, one that is designed for the students, and certainly ways for the administration to show benefits from it. And one thing that we didn't talk about was the data analytics that come off of this network, right? And so you can see where the students are engaging, how long they engage with subject matters, and also looking at other content that they're engaging with as well on the network. So there's lots of benefits in that area. But I have to say, we're extremely excited about what Olivia has developed, where we are, and really excited to work with the industry on multiple fronts.
Yeah, it sounds exciting. Well, Ryan, thank you for your time and your insights today. It's a great conversation. So we appreciate. Here's Ryan Ross. Everyone have a round of applause. He's founder and CEO of Olivia Technologies. So thank you for joining us again, Ryan.
No, Elliot, I appreciate that. And if anyone's in the audience is interested, they can reach out to us through our website. That's olivia.schools, or they can reach out to me directly, Ryan@olivia.education. So love to hear from you. And I appreciate your time, Elliot, and excited to maybe have another chance to come back and expand the conversation.
Oh, absolutely, because it's going to continue to evolve. The needs are going to get greater and greater as we touched upon. So thank you again. Once again, my name is Elliot Markowitz. Check out my website and content services at www.emediastrategies.net. You can get a lot of information there. Ladies and gentlemen, you've now just been EdUp.
Oh, yeah.
The Middle States Commission on Higher Education 2023 Annual Conference is in Philadelphia, December 4th through 6th. Setting the standard, transformation through accreditation. Remember, only you can create transformation through networking, knowledge sharing, opportunity, leadership, service, learning, and accreditation. And you'll do all those things at the Middle States Commission on Higher Education Annual Conference this December 4th through 6th. Can't wait to be there. EdUp will be there. There's going to be over 1,300 attendees, presidents, provosts. The networking opportunities are off the chain. Register now at msche.org.
Oh, yeah.
Attention higher ed marketing and enrollment management professionals. We are taking the EdUp Experience podcast to Insights EDU. Join us at Insights EDU on February 20th to 22nd, 2024 in Phoenix, Arizona. Gain insight into the latest higher education trends and cutting-edge marketing strategies that'll take your institution's enrollment to a whole new level. This is your opportunity to connect with higher education leaders and marketing experts from across the country. Comprehensive presentations, engaging panel discussions, and more. Insights EDU will equip you to position your institution for growth. Register now at insightsedu.com and use the code EdUp to save $50 off your registration. Can you afford to miss this conference?
I don't think so.